Hi friends, in Planet Earth Dating, today is Wednesday, May 3rd, 2023, and here in the Jamie channel, the authorized souls remain only child souls from the deeper, denser dimensions, and all other souls, as long as those souls are working to manifest the divine plan, working to help all souls live their own individual soul plans. And we believe that the question for today is how to do that if we really want to live this destiny of helping all of their souls reach their own destinies. How does someone go about doing that? In case you're new to this work, just a reminder that yawning, eye motions, runny noses, changes in breathing patterns are all common signals of energy moving in the physical body. And so when I have those signals, it's a good sign that the energy is actually moving. And if those kinds of things make you uncomfortable, this might not be the kind of work that you're interested in watching. There we go. Now the energy is starting to flow. So to begin, let's try to find that big group of guardian angels who I think would technically be referred to as archangels because they're responsible for a group. And in this case, the group is the collective of this Patreon channel. We're also going to try to reach up to a group of archangels who are responsible for the group of presences who were born with the soul plan to help all others live their soul plans. And there's a pretty big group. It's been estimated around 3 million. There we go. And so let's reach all the way up. Beautiful. To that group of guardian angels. Okay. And if there's any other information that's supposed to be sent down that I haven't thought to ask of yet, that's always welcome, that's always requested. We want to do whatever the channeling work is that we're supposed to do today, and we think it's to find out how to help everyone else live their soul plan. There we go. Beautiful. And the doors are starting to open upstairs. So let's start to reach up through those doors. Beautiful. And the first answer is probably the most obvious. I've been through years and years of training in order to do healing work that's specifically designed to align people with their soul plans. We're actually in my office right now. This is the office where I work with a lot of my clients. But that kind of training isn't really available to a lot of people. I'm very grateful that I was able to have it. I'm grateful that I'm able to do that as part of what I do for a living. That's really wonderful. But so I guess I need to refine the question to what can most of us do to help others live their destinies, live their soul plans? What can most of us do? The guardian angels are talking about frame of reference in terms of where we are in history. And they're talking about how our perceptions of what is a good or worthy goal or a good or worthy task in order to accomplish that goal are for the most part irrelevant. They're for the most part obsolete, I think is the word they're talking about. And they're talking about how what the science is telling us is that the number of years left on this particular planet for humans in order to survive in a way that is healthy and reasonable is pretty short. And so a lot of what we've been working toward for our lives and as a society are not relevant goals anymore. They've become obsolete. And there are a lot of the goals that we grow up thinking are important, like having an awful lot of money, being famous for some kind of, entertainment, something kind of frivolous, something kind of talent-based, I guess. those things are becoming less and less relevant as we get closer and closer to real global collapse. And there are some things that we can do to help everybody live their soul plan, because everybody's soul plan is getting more and more centered around the idea of what to do in what time we have left on this planet. And we're all supposed to do something. Some of us are supposed to get very into urban, suburban, rural agriculture. We're supposed to learn how to care for the land. The guardian angels are saying it's unlikely we'll actually be able to feed ourselves or our neighbors off of these pursuits when things start to collapse, when our food system falls apart. What it's more about is it's more about karmically having been seen as doing something. And the same goes for civil disobedience, activism, protesting. The big guys upstairs think it's very unlikely that we'll get the opportunity, that we'll get the chance to really break through to the people in power, because the people in power are being funded by the people who are perpetuating the collapse of our planet. And that's not a woo-woo conspiracy theory thing. That's simply the truth of how fossil fuel funding works in our government. It's unfortunately public knowledge. It's an open corruption system, and we just haven't done anything really effective about it. There we go. But much like this idea of becoming an urban, suburban, or rural farmer, the idea of civil disobedience is so that when this life ends and we get up into that big room with our guardian angels and they say, okay, you were picked, you went in during the rough time, you said you could do it, you said you were going to help people learn stuff, you were going to make it better, what did you do? We can say, I protested, or I supported protesters who were fighting for the kind of measures that would have mitigated the planetary crisis. I took care of what land I had access to. They're talking about carbon footprint. I understand what they're saying. They're talking about how the concept of a carbon footprint really was perpetuated by fossil fuel industry in order to deflect some of the fire that had been pointed onto them, because people were starting to say, hey, you're ruining our planet. And the industry said, okay, well, you all have a carbon footprint as well. And even though the carbon footprint was technically invented by the bad guys, what matters about the carbon footprint is this similar concept of karma. Limiting the number of plane flights we take, limiting the amount of meat and dairy we consume, recycling, limiting the amount of waste we put into the landfill. All of these are good and useful steps. If you have the wherewithal to install solar or get into a community solar program, that's an excellent idea. If you're able to drive a vehicle that has a higher gas mileage or that uses a hybrid battery system, that's a great idea. Nobody upstairs, and fewer and fewer, I think, scientifically informed people down here are going to tell you that that's going to save the world. What it is going to do, however, is show that you tried to do something. Karma is talked about a lot in a lot of wisdom traditions, and even in the more Western religions like Catholicism, Protestantism, that whole Christianity sect. Even then they talk about things like grace. They talk about the concept of doing good to others means that good comes back to us. And even if these angels are saying, even if we wanted to look at the concept of heaven and the concept of hell, a lot of what they're seeing, what they're looking at, and what their prophets have worked through, it has to do with the karmic cycle and the long arc of justice, as Martin Luther King Jr. called it, that long arc of justice. It's all talking about how the weight of our actions does get weighed, and it is taken into consideration in things that happen. So all of these things, like reducing our carbon footprint, joining civil disobedience for active change to save the planet, caring for the land that we have, caring for, they're talking about the vulnerable. And they're talking about how there are vulnerable non-humans. Obviously, we're in a biodiversity crisis. Something like 70% of the species on our planet have been wiped out since 1970, which is appalling. And I hope you can find proof that that stat is not real, but unfortunately the research I've done has come across that stat over and over again. So non-human animals are incredibly vulnerable. There are also vulnerable human animals, people who were born with limited resources, and they're saying, heads up, most of them were not born in the northern hemisphere. Most of them are in places that look very different from where you live, and that doesn't mean to not start where you live, because we know in previous channelings they've said, if you need to get started helping people, start with something around you, start something you can reach. But overall, globally, we know those are not the most vulnerable human animals, and no human animals are as vulnerable as non-human animals right now. And so that's another thing that adds to the karmic record. Okay, so all of this is things that we can do to help our own karmic record. And coming back to this initial question of how can we help others live their soul plans, probably that means we can help others do those things. If everybody's soul plans have to do with making a really clear and obvious karmic mark that they tried to do something to break the status quo of destruction on our planet, if that's what we're all supposed to be doing, if that's the test we're all in the middle of right now, probably the best way to help people live their soul plan is to help people do those things. Unfortunately, a lot of those things are really challenging because a lot of people have built lives around that status quo. A lot of people work either directly or indirectly for fossil fuel companies. A lot of people work for the pharmaceutical company. A lot of people work for pesticide companies. Remember when this channel was much younger and friends were still in college, we were all still in various universities, and we had friends who were chemical engineers. And we remember when all the chemical engineers were starting to research what kind of jobs they might have with the degrees that they were earning. And what would come up over and over again was working in the fossil fuel industry, working for the pesticide industry, working for pharmaceuticals, working to make poisons of various kinds for various uses, not just pesticides, but insecticides. So in a sense, our entire culture right now, we're all kind of like chemical engineering students nearing graduation. We've been preparing a very specific set of skills, and for most of us, we've been preparing the set of skills to survive and be functional in this particular society in which we live. And then as we're nearing graduation, so to speak, which is probably the collapse of our biosphere, which is sad, as we're nearing that graduation, we're looking at the options that our preparations have led us to. And those options are karmically, if not in the immediate physical sense, bad. All right, so what should those people have done? What should those chemical engineering majors have done? Should they have switched majors and spent more time in school? Should they have just gone into those careers knowing that they were ultimately not good for the world itself? What should they have done?